The date is October 24th, 1952. Overcast day at 3:42 p.m. Coming to you from Metrocity Detective Agency. That is your host, Ian, starring as Richard Diggler, lead detective. I am your host, Joe, starring as Detective Shamrock. We are we are here bringing you an improv detective story, and we must solve the case of the shoe Shister. Let us begin.
Yes. It was another windy afternoon in Metrocity. October the 24th, to be exact. I just about had my head stuffed listening to every wino come through that door and tell me what have about the things that they've lost or someone spying on them and all other manner of crazy caricatures of stories brought before me. But on this particular day, a crime would befall my desk, one which I have been asked to investigate, and one which I can't say I have ever seen the likes of before or since. It was the shoe shyster. The man walked in, like any other, on that fine October day, rather disheveled looking fellow, and placed upon my desk a single right handed boot, and told me that someone had been stealing all the left handed shoes in his house. I looked over at my good partner to see if he had any input on the situation.
Sir, the dude has pink socks on. What do you make of that?
Yeah, he does seem to have pink socks on. Hey, how come you got pink socks there, fella? Did you accidentally mix in a red shirt in the wash? He nodded solemnly at me. I understood his pain. I'd been there often before. I like to get Detective Shamrock's input on these things before I make any judgments. Sometimes it can really help set my mind in the right frame of things. I said that might be so, my young inspector detective. Shamrock, Shake, my favorite from McDonald's. But this boot appears to only be a right handed boot, and our good fellow appears to only be wearing right handed shoes, and someone's been stealing all the left handed shoes out of his house. What kind of insane man would do such an inconveniencing thing? Any ideas from you, Shamrock?
I think whoever did, we gotta throw him in the loony bin. That's some devil magic right there.
The loony bin's too good for this man. I want him gone. I'm going to find him. I'm going to lock him away for the rest of his natural life. What say you, Shamrock? You think we should go take a look at this case? Bust it wide open like a walnut in a nutcracker mouth?
Let's get her done.
Shamrock and I loaded up in the car, headed on down the road, listening to the man's horrid account of how he had come home after a long day at the packing peanuts factory, where he individually places them one by one into those boxes in a manner so befitting so that when you open your package with your item inside, the peanuts spill everywhere in your house, unable to be cleaned. Though I had my feelings of the manner of the man's work, I kept them to myself as we drove along in the car. I watched the trees sway to and fro in the wind, noting that they were like my own mind, flip-flopping back and forth between what could be and what so exists. We arrived at the man's house. I looked at Shamrock. It wasn't in good shape. Any thoughts on his house, Shamrock?
I see about 15 different pairs of shoes. Not a single left one.
Not a single left shoe was remaining in this house. Truly, whoever committed this crime was a mastermind. Now, the poor soul informed us that the burglar had broke in while he was away at work, and the only thing of note was a broken window in his kitchen. I asked Shamrock to take a look around, see if he noticed anything else in the house while I examined the shoes.
Why why do you have a piñata set up in your kitchen, sir?
A pinata in the kitchen. Of course, how could I have been so careless? There it was, dangling, right from the ceiling, bright orange, pink, and blue, all in color. He told me it was for his daughter's birthday party. All right, maybe that one was on me. I should have paid a little bit more attention. But wait, I asked, where is your daughter now? She isn't home. To which he told me she was hanging out with friends after school. Again, probably my fault, considering I don't interact with children very much. I looked at Shamrock with a glistening eye. Well, Shamrock, I think we need to find out where these missing shoes have gone, don't you? Are there any clues you might have found to point us in the direction of where this thief, this culprit, this vile man may have gone?
I think I see a sticky note with a poorly drawn shoe. I don't think that guy has attended an art class in his entire life. Don't know how that's going to help us find this dude, but we'll do our best.
Good work, Detective Shamrock. I looked back at the man and I handed him my card. Detective Richard Diggler, but most folks call me Dick. Feel free to. I don't mind. I grabbed the sticky note and I looked at the poorly drawn shoe upon it. I gave a hearty sniff of the paper. Poplar. Only one place in town makes sticky notes out of poplar tree. I knew we would have to head over there immediately. Oh, I gotta get myself lightheaded from that. I gotta take a second. I got lightheaded. Oh. I knew only one factory in town made them poplar sticky notes. The Poplar Sticky Note Factory, just across from the Burlington Northern Coat Factory, down on the other end of town. I looked at Shamrock. You're driving, I told him, and we loaded up in the car. Shamrock spoke to me as we drove to the factory.
I'm not feeling very confident about this case, if I'm being honest with you, Dick.
Oh, don't you worry, Shamrock. We'll have this all sorted out in a jiffy. It'll go down easier than whipped cream. We'll bust this shoe bandit before you can say Thursday. Why Thursday? I don't know. Just because I feel like saying Thursday. I looked out the window. It looked like some rain droplets were starting to land on the windshield. But then I just realized that it was drops from the young schoolboy peeing out the window of the school bus in front of us. I rolled up my window in disgust. I didn't want him to put out my cigar.
Case for another day, Dick.
Too true, Shamrock, too true. We pulled up to the factory and I walked inside. I flipped over the note to see the serial number stamped on the back side of the sticky note. Lucky Charms, it said. Man, these serial numbers, they're getting more complicated every year. I went up to the factory advisor, the strong boss of the floor, and I said, do you recognize who makes these sticky notes? He took the note and he said, Lucky Charms. Sticky notes, huh? There's only one man in this entire factory that makes Lucky Charms sticky notes. I'll show you where it works, but I warn you, he hasn't been in here for a few days. I glanced nervously at Shamrock. We walked over to the station where the man makes his sticky notes. A little tray in front of him that he pours the liquid into and waits approximately 7 minutes and 37 seconds for it to dry before stamping it into one individual note and placing it to the side. I know, because I myself was once a sticky note factory man. It's grueling work. Poor Shamrock. He's had the luxury of never having to do such arduous labor. I gave a knowing smirk to him as I saw him picking around with the other machines and workers in the background.
Sir, something seems a little off about this machine over here.
What is it, Shamrock? As I glanced back at him, the strong boss, too, had a curiosity peaked about him.
What are all these buttons for?
Oh, well, those buttons there, said the strong boss, walking past me in a manner befitting one who runs a factory. Having trouble with the English words today. We'll get there. And he said, you see how there's the alphabet up top and the numbers down below? You push a letter followed by a number, and then that vending machine spits out a snack for you to eat while on the job. Shamrock looked surprised.
If that's the case, then why is there one row missing but the rest are full? Could it be the culprit we're after?
Why, yes, he said. The man who normally works the sticky note station with the Lucky Charms poplar sticky notes. Why, he loves them little Nilla wafers that come in the package. But see, they're really skimpy. They only give you 2, and they're only about the size of a quarter. So he likes to buy them all up at once and chow down on them while he's on the job. I glanced back over at this mystery man's workstation, and sure enough, I could see vanilla crumbs scattered everywhere. No wonder I had gotten the faint scent of vanilla from that sticky note as well. It was unmistakable. I glanced at Shamrock. Good work, I said. Any other clues that you might notice around this fantastic factory?
It's kind of weird. Why do the crumbs on the floor spell out left?
I glanced down at the floor. Indeed, Shamrock was correct. The crumbs happened to spell out, in Morse code, left, like a mysterious calling card, just like the sticky note. It was another head scratcher, another clue, but what direction did it point? Where did we go? What did we do from here? Shamrock caught me off guard when he suggested this.
Why don't we look left?
God, that's why I keep you around, Shamrock. You're the one who keeps me straight, even when I'm falling off the wagon. I turned left, straight into the face of the factory boss. Of course, why hadn't I thought of it before? Who is the man who works at this station? I asked the boss. The boss looked at me in surprise, as though he wasn't expecting the question. Mike. Mike Can't Dance. That's the name of the man who works at this workstation, eating vanilla cookies and making the poplar sticky notes. I look back at Shamrock. Well, looks like we're paying a visit to old Mikey Can't Dance.
Where do you think we can find him?
Well, that's easy. He's the next door neighbor to the man who lost all of his left shoes. How did I know that? That's an old detective trick, Shamrock. You'll learn someday. But it's quite simple, really. I went through the mailboxes of every house on the block that we were at while we were there visiting the house that gotten robbed. Sometimes you gotta break a few walnuts to make an omelet. Shamrocky boy. That's how things get done around here.
And that's why you're the lead.
We went back out to the car, started it up, and cranked the heater. The temperature was dropping on that cold October day, and surely I couldn't bear any longer to be in this frigid temperatures without some sort of warmth. As we drove on, I mused with Shamrock. Perhaps the man is stealing all the left shoes because he can't tell his left from his right. Maybe he's amassing an army of left-footed. I can't think of the word.
Monsters.
Left-footed monsters. People who were only born with the left foot for some reason, and he wanted to take over the town. Maybe he thought he was going to take over the factory. Maybe he thought he'd make his own poplar sticky notes, or maybe, just maybe, He was going to raid the Nilla cookie factory so he could get his hands on all the Nilla cookies he wanted. My mind recoiled in horror at the twisted, sick thoughts that must run through a man who steals only left shoes. I looked to Shamrock to see if he had any ideas that might help us supplant the reasons why, the modus operandi of this psychopath as we rolled on towards his house.
Maybe he has a foot fetish for only left feet.
Oh, I stopped Shamrock there. Oh, sometimes his imagination could make even me shiver. We pulled up next to Mr. Mike Can't Dance's house, and surely enough, I could see the trail of broken glass leading from the kitchen window of our poor victim straight to the front door of Mr. Mike Can't Dance. It was a telltale sign, to be sure. We strolled up and knocked softly on the door. So softly, Mr. Mike Can't Dance couldn't even hear it. Perfect opportunity to break in, I said, before shooting 7 rounds into the deadbolt and blowing it completely off the door. That's one way to unlock a door. Unlock a door, Shamrock. You could learn a thing or two from me. I turned to see Shamrock putting his lockpick set back into his pocket.
Guess I won't be needing this today. Always another day.
Someday, Shamrock, you'll get to use those picks. We pushed the door wide open as Mr. Mike Can't Dance strolled out of his kitchen, wearing a left boot. Proof right before our very eyes that the culprit was Mr. Mike Can't Dance. I looked at Shamrock and told him to go take him down.
I grabbed him and threw him right against his cabinetry. The vase fell from the top and knocked him out. We will have to wait about 15 minutes until he wakes up.
But as he fell against the cabinet doors swung open, revealing a sea of left shoes that fell and piled high around him, almost entombing him in the boots if we had not acted quickly and pulled him from the rubble as it rained down upon him. I looked at Shamrock and told him to get him some cold water that we could splash in his face.
I grabbed a 5-gallon bucket filled with ice cubes and water and threw it against his face to wake him up.
Good work, Shamrock. That's how you do an interrogation. As Mr. Mike Can't Dance sprung to life, a gasping breath escaping from his chest as he realized his predicament, he saw us standing over top of him. Fess up, Can't Dance. I know you're the one who stole all those left boots from your neighbor, but what I want to know is why? Why did you steal those left boots from your neighbor? What could possibly motivate you to commit such a heinous crime? I even let Shamrock get in a few questions of his own. Can't let this poor soul have time to think of a lie. Hit him rapid fire, Shamrock.
Why do you have green socks on your right foot?
Oh, please, I'll confess to everything, Mr. Can't Dance said. I have green socks because I mowed grass yesterday without a right boot. I looked at Shamrock, told him to fire off a few more. Don't even give him a chance to think.
Where were you yesterday at 7:45 p.m.?
I was breaking out of my neighbor's kitchen. You see, I snuck in while he was away at work, and I had to steal all of his left-handed shoes because I needed to know for sure that one would fit. I looked at the man, confused. Why? Why would you need to steal his left boots? You have a pair of regular shoes right by your front door. I saw them. And your green sock. Why? Why wouldn't you wear your right boot? He looked up nervously at me before he finally confessed. A few days ago, I'd gone on a date. This beautiful woman, Marlene Superdance, Best dancer in the whole town. The name was a giveaway. All I really wanted to do was go on Broadway and be in musical theaters and dance. So I invited her out. I needed a professional to tell me if I maybe could be in a Broadway performance. So we went to the show and we were out on the dance floor and I was moving and grooving, strutting my stuff. But Marlene told me that I had 2 left feet and it left me in tears. How could this be? How could I have gone my whole life believing I had 1 left foot and 1 right foot? How could I have been so blind? So I needed to know. I needed to know if I really did have 2 left feet. And as you can see, I didn't have any other left-handed shoes. But I knew my neighbor, Tom Leftfoot. He would have all the shoes that I needed. And so I broke into his house. I picked the locks on his doors. And I stole all of his left-handed shoes because I needed to know. I needed to know that one of them would fit. I needed to know if I could ever have a chance of going on Broadway and dancing. But I quickly realized he was almost home, and so I had to break out of his kitchen window and run back to my place carrying all the shoes before I tried them on one by one. And not a single left boot fit. I don't have 2 left feet. I'll never have what it takes to make a Broadway dancer. I looked at Shamrock, this sick man. You thought dancing was as easy as putting on some shoes and twirling around on a floor? No, couldn't be. I looked at Shamrock. Put the cuffs on him. This man deserves a nice cold cell to sit in and think about what he's done. I told Shamrock, you can read him his rights.
I don't think your feet were the problem of you not being on Broadway. Use the top part of your body for that instead.
Perhaps the wheelchair he had sitting in the corner was some indication of his situation. But I paid no mind to that now. The deed was done. Shamrock and I had busted another heinous crime committed in Metrocity. Criminals never sleep in this city. And so long as they don't, neither will I or Shamrock. Except maybe for a little bit on the weekends, because it does get pretty hard, going 72 hours at a time without getting any sleep. We went back to the neighbor's house to inform him where all of his shoes had gone. I let Shamrock give the report. He's always been better at relating to victims than me. I had a sort of cold shoulder that made it tough to relate to people.
Your neighbor's an idiot. Here are your shoes back.
Man, he was good with words. God, I envied him. If only I knew how to be so eloquently spoken all the time. We got back in the car, and I looked at Shamrock. Well, looks like it's another case closed. How about you and I head on to that downtown hot dog bar we found? They play some good music there, and I could use some fine wine and dancing after a horrible case like this. I get the feeling I'd never shake the October cold that this city brought down upon me on this terrible day.
And I know as well as you got 2 right feet.
You're darn right. Just like I got 2 right hands. That was a bad way to show 2 right hands. I offered Shamrock a pull of my cigar. Care for a drag, Shamrock?
Nah, I'm diabetic.
Right you are. Here's that pixie stick I've been holding on to for you. We rolled on down the road. The sun just peeking through the clouds, and the leaves just starting to stop blowing down the sidewalk. Somehow, I got the feeling this wouldn't be the last of the adventures of Shamrock and Dick Diggler, detective in Metrocity.
Thank you for joining us for our story of
You've been a wonderful audience.
of improvised nature, if you couldn't tell.
We'll slowly get better at these noir settings, but if you'd like to see more of the adventures of Dick Diggler and Inspector Detective Shamrock, I should say, as they thwart heinous crimes and Metrocity and stop the truly dangerous criminals out there, then subscribe and like and follow and all other matter of wonderful things that you use your mouse for on YouTube.
Subscribing
You
is a
should.
lot easier than discovering who is the shoe shyster.
It's much simpler than finding a shoe shyster. But I tell you what, we don't take the cases because they're easy. We take the cases because I'm hard. You got a quote, Shamrock?
From the Sherlock Holmes books. Education never ends, Watson. It is a series of lessons with the greatest for the last. Whatever that means.
So eloquently spoken, as always. My quote today: research is the process of going up alleys to see if they are blind. But I don't know if you know this, alleys aren't blind. People are blind. Alley don't have eyes. People have eyes. But until then, take her easy now. This is Richard Diggler signing off.